Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Just been going around trimming spikes and blooms off. It's always a bit of a sad job that, but you look afterwards and think, oh, the plant looks better now because everything looks tidier. And quite honestly, if the blooms are fading, the spike just as well come off. I mean, I've found with quite a lot of orchids, the sooner the spike comes off, the sooner the new growths kick off, you know. So anyway, that's that job done. And while I was at it, I spotted that out the corner of my eye. These types of spikes have a habit of appearing out of nowhere. Now, I noticed that the node was moving a while ago, and I noticed that there was a short spike a while later, and now we've got a long spike. Now, this is the sad bit where I've had to hold on sending all the plants out. Strictly speaking, that plant doesn't belong to me, so this should be blooming in somebody else's place, not here. But at least they get to see it, I suppose. But yeah, that's a Griffithianum something or other cross. It's gone. Totally gone. And it won't say on the tag either, because that'll have its proper name. Farmer Eye, there we go. Griffithianum crossed with Farmer Eye. But that's actually got a proper name, Memoria Christa Erdmann. It's one of the big box orchids originally, but I have the cross the other way round in a larger, more mature plant sort of thing. And because the blooms are virtually identical, there's no point in having two, if you see what I mean. This plant has now lost virtually all of its leaves except for this latest new growth over here. It should come back into growth soon now as well and start producing some more new growths. So, but at the moment, the other one, it's buried all up in there. I can't get at it. But if you look through the canes, I'll see if I can use the zoom. It's zooming into a dark corner, so it may not work. Plus, I can't see what they have. Yeah, it does work. You can see there at least two spikes. There's actually 3 spikes in shot there, which I've got a job to even see with my naked eye. But top right, sort of dead centre, there's one hanging down, which is obvious. Just above it, there's another one hanging down, and behind those two is another one. There's actually a 4th one somewhere on that plant, so I'll have to get that one out of the corner soon as well. But that one, as far as I know, is an unregistered hybrid. Right, that's that. Now, today's video, I'm not quite sure if it's going to work, but I'm going to get my hercoglossum hung up here somewhere and try and film the decision-making process for trimming off the old canes. Now, to do that, I've got to get quite a few plants out of the way, and I'm not quite sure where I'm going to put the camera. But it's probably going to have to go on the tripod, like up here, somewhere like that. Because if I don't get in reasonably close, there's no point in filming it. You won't see what I'm doing. But I will move some plants, get the tripod in here, see what I can do. This may or may not work. Might be a miserable failure, but we'll give it a go. Okay, I don't know how much of this you're going to actually see. I know I've got the top of the plant in, which is where obviously the trimming will be done, but to get the camera far enough away to get the whole plant in, it'll be too far away to actually see what's going on. Now, on this plant we have most of the new growths are up in this area, heading away from the camera. Many are up, literally up there, the other side of this rack that it's hanging on. Now, in amongst some of these higher up canes are canes like this. That's long since served its purpose, and I'm going to do this methodically if I can, starting in one place and work away from that place. Again, that cane has bloomed on the nodes, has no leaves, and I'm not worried about leaving canes on this plant as storage, because it's a massive plant. It doesn't need these really old shriveledy type canes as storage areas while other things are going on. It just doesn't need that. But in this process, care has got to be taken, because if you look here, there's a totally leafless old cane that's got buds all up it. Yeah, this is probably its third or fourth year in existence, and this is the bit that's all tangled up. This is the bit where I want to do some work. See, now I've got one in my hand here. In amongst these ones with buds on is this one. That's got no nodes left that haven't bloomed. They've all bloomed and the leaves have gone. So I've got to trace that one back to the source and make sure I only cut that one and nothing else. And then gently take it out so that it doesn't knock all the buds off of the other canes. Because this is the problem, the canes are bumping into each other and tangling, and it's easy for buds to get knocked off. Now in that same area there's another one here. Again, all the nodes have been used. Trace it back to source, and strangely enough it's right next door to the one I've just cut off. Gently tease it out. And then right next door to that one is yet another one that goes back to, well, that goes back to a different part of the plant. So that area is now a little bit decluttered. Not so bad. But as I said, care's got to be taken because some of these older canes are tangled up in amongst and have actually got buds on. And I don't want to lose the buds. That one I'm just going to take part of the cane off because most of the cane has now bloomed, but it's still got a few buds on it. But by taking the end of the cane off with no buds on, it stops it tangling up and getting in the way of others. So I am trimming the ends off of some of the canes just to stop them tangling up. Not too many, I mean most of them are blooming towards the end. There's an old one up there. See, this one up here has bloomed on all of the nodes, but it's still got 2 leaves on it. Well, it doesn't matter, it's coming off. It can't bloom again. So that's unusual. I wasn't expecting to take any canes off with leaves on. I'm bashing my chrysotoxin around here as well. Just give that a little twist. Right, that's probably all I'm going to be able to do. That wasn't many canes, it was just a couple. What have we got here? Where does this one head off to? So again, that's another long one with no nodes left apart from the one set of buds. There. And there's another one like that here as well. I say this is a tidying process. Good job I didn't cut that one off, wasn't it? It's the one with all those blooms on the end of it. Right, so that's probably about as much as I'm going to do. So the decision-making process was nothing more than, is this cane finished? In other words, it's never going to bloom again, and in most cases has lost its leaves. And that leaves the plant tidier. Not as much of a tidy as I was expecting to do, quite honestly. I was expecting to do more. Maybe next year, but a lot of it is because the plant has now got almost too large. I know that sounds silly, but it's lost its elegance as a plant. It's still, the blooms are still smashing and everything, but it's I'll get it down so that we can manoeuvre it a bit. So looking at it, oh, where's my lens? Can't see what the hell I'm doing here. So these are last year's new growths up here and some here. Yeah, there won't be any blooms on these, although having just said that to make me out a liar, there's an actual spike just there, just starting. But that would be unusual. These canes, this set here, are next year's blooms and the following year. Yeah, these canes will carry on growing this year, even though they're last year's growths. This year's new growths are just starting at the base. There's only a couple so far, but this year's new growths are just starting at the base. So this little set here are last year's. They're not full size yet, they are still growing. So they grew all through last year, they grew on through the winter, and they're still growing. So they will still get a bit longer than that. And therein lies what the plant does. they're not really long enough yet to tilt over and become pendulous, and that will happen during this year, and they will clear the decks out of the way for the new ones to come up. Yeah, and that's the cycle. But what's happened here is I had a particularly good year where lots of canes came out, and as you can see, this is just a tangled mess now. They're crossing over each other, buds are getting tangled up. It's almost impossible to untangle it without knocking all the buds off. Let me just hang it up again and see if I can just do a little bit of work on untangling. Yeah, that was a bud, just fell off. It's hardly worth it. But it's like this cane here. This would do better over this side of the plant. But this is a tangled mess, this bit here. But there's not much I can do about it. That's actually freed up a little bit. But that's the cycle of canes, basically. You've got new growths just starting, this year's. This group up here are last year's. This bulk here are the year before's, yeah, with some of the previous years in. And then over here, we've got the oldest canes that are totally leafless, or all bar the odd leaf or two, but are still blooming. They're still pushing buds out. So you've got to go very careful about trimming old canes off of this type of dendrobium. Yeah. So, well, that's a quick tidy up. I don't know how much of that was visible or how much is of use. How many other people have got a plant like this? But, you know, it's done well for me, this plant. It blooms well every year. So I've just spotted another one of those canes that is virtually... See, I could take that cane off. It's got one spike. That's all it's going to do. But why waste the buds? It's still a spike, isn't it? But we can take the end of it off and stop it tangling up. And I think I've got most of these canes now that are... And next year, virtually all of these canes here will be able to come off. Because looking at last year where they bloomed, and possibly even the year before, and where they're blooming now, next year they won't have any leaves and they will have used up all their blooming nodes. So that's a lot of canes can come off next year. And some of these canes in this tangle will start to become leafless by then. So there we go. So the blooms are coming out a bit hit and miss this time. I've had 2 years together and just had a mass blooming where they all came out, you know, within a week of each other and we're all out together. Whereas this year, I mean, I've got several clusters of blooms actually open. I don't know how much of this is on camera. Let me just put the camera back a bit now that we're not doing detailed stuff. Of course the tripod would get stuck, wouldn't it? Nothing's ever easy. Right, somewhere like that. Sorry about the cranking around. Yeah, so I've got clusters of buds out, yes, and then I've got buds that are about to open, but then I've got areas where there's still tiny little buds. So this is going to be in bloom over a long period, but it won't have as many out together. Because I need to be thinking now, our virtual display tables, competition tables that we did for Bournemouth Orchid Society, they've decided to do it again this month, but under restrictions this time. You're only allowed to put one plant in and you're only allowed one picture. So you have to choose whether you want to put a picture of the whole plant in or whether you just want a bloom spike or whatever. But it was a bit overwhelming because it was well supported, which is good, but it meant that few people dealing with it just got a bit overwhelmed. So only one plant each this time and only one picture. What I'm going to ask is, can you overlay, like, you know, can I have a picture like that of the whole plant with an inset showing a close-up of the blooms? So it's still only one picture, but really it's two. I'll ask. they probably won't even know what I'm talking about. I'll have to send an example, won't I? Because for me that's easy to do. It's not going to be easy. A lot of people just won't be able to do it because they won't have the software. But I can just use my video editing software. You know, I can get a good framed shot on the video camera of my whole plant, nicely in focus and everything, with a black backdrop and everything. And then I can use the video camera to do a nice close-in shot of a bloom or a couple of blooms or something like that. And then the video editing software that I use will automatically do its job. You've seen it often enough in my videos. In fact, I will do it now. Imagine that this is a still, yeah? And now I put a pop-up up. It's as easy as that with the video editing software. And then all I've got to do is freeze that and take a still out of the video, and that will be my photo. So I can do it easily, but not everybody can. Right, I'll leave it at that for today. I haven't got much else to do, quite honestly. I'm not watering anything today. And I've messed my watering schedules up going around with the sprayer, because I now don't really know where I am. And I'm going to have to put an effort in to water my pots. And in amongst those pots there will be quite a few that don't need watering because they got quite a bit from the sprayer and they haven't dried out yet. And that's a little disconcerting. I'll just take this off of the tripod a second. If it's what I think it is, it may not be, but up on the glass there, that's a slug trail. Phew, it's outside. I don't care about outside. But yeah, like what I was saying, you know, like I can back away with the video camera and get like a whole plant, but then, you know, I can you know, get some sort of close up together and do it as a pop-up. So, but it might not be allowed. It might be deemed an unfair advantage. So I'll have to ask. And I got my proposer and seconder to see if I can get on the committee. I still don't know how they're going to do that. A virtual AGM is not going to be that easy, because normally somebody reads something out and then says, and who agrees, and people put their hands up and they're counted, and that's it. It's a visual thing with the people who turn up. That's not going to be so easy to do with emails and stuff, is it? You know, they'll just have to write it all out and, I don't know, expect people to reply via the email process. I don't know how they're going to do it. Not my problem. As long as my nomination and seconding gets included. I actually ended up with 3 seconders. Rather than, I only need 1, but sent them off anyway. Anyway, that will be at another time. Let's get these plants back where they go. As I say, no watering today. The mounts got done quite late in the day yesterday, and we've got nothing today. It's been raining most of the days. There's no heat in here. I don't know what it is, probably about 21. No, it's 20. So that's as much heat as I'm going to get today. So the kit won't be on. It'll just be quiet in here today. Just the little computer fans whizzing away. And I can get away with not doing the mounts today. I mean, just handling this mount here, that's not dry, that's still damp. So they'll wait till tomorrow. And then I'll have to decide what I'm going to do with the pots. Am I going to go round? Because I know what will happen. I'll go round and some of the pots will need watering and some of them won't because they're wet from the sprayer. Well, how long do I leave them before the next time then? Because normally it's on a regular basis and it just works. Well, I've sort of interrupted that now by using a blinking sprayer and not being able to see what's going on when I water. So I won't be doing that often because it messes me up. Anyway, thanks for dropping by, and I'll just point the camera up here. These spikes are doing some strange things up here, the brassica spikes. I haven't got stakes that can deal with it either, but that spike up the back is heading this way, so that's curving towards us. This one up here is curving towards us. This one's going out slightly sideways. This one's curving towards us, and this awkward toad's going in completely the opposite direction. Just the one. There's always one, isn't there? But it does look like there's starting to look like buds are starting to show now. Presume it will start budding from about here upwards. Oh, those are going to be long spikes by the time. I mean, you've got to bear in mind there's a reasonable gap between the blooms on brassica spikes, so these spikes have still got some growing to do. They must be, well, they're well over 2/3 of a metre. I would say that if we go back to old money, they're a yard long now, 3 feet. And they haven't finished yet. They're going to be right up near the roof, aren't they? I think eventually the plant will have to go on the floor. And we'll have to, given that if it's that tall, it's not like the blooms will be on the floor. If they're going to be on the end of 4-foot staked spikes, then they're going to be like chest height for me. So it's not like they will be on the floor, only the plant will. So we'll have to see how that goes. So anyway, don't know how long this is. Do you know, look at that. I didn't know Masdevallias did that. That spike has split. I've only just noticed that. There's another bud coming out of the same spike. Well, that's unusual, and this one certainly hasn't done it before. Well, none of mine have done it before. Now, I wonder if that bud is going to be open at the same time and there'll be 2 on one spike. I wonder. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? Right, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.